Good afternoon. My name is Stacy Hendler-Ross. I am the Public Information Officer for the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority. Today we are releasing some information about the findings of an independent investigation into the mass shooting that happened at a VTA rail yard in May of 2021. I want to introduce our Chief of External Affairs, Jim Lawson. He'll be making a statement and then he'll be able to answer some questions.
Thank you and good evening. Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry about the short notice. As Stacy said, we provided you a copy with the independent investigator's findings. This was a tragic and deeply upsetting event for all of us here at VTA. But importantly, our board of directors wanted to find out if there was anything we could have or should have known that might have prevented this tragedy. They commissioned an independent outside investigator who performed a workplace investigation to determine if there was anything that we missed. It's important to note the investigation was not a criminal investigation, a root cause analysis, nor a psychological study of the shooter's motives. The findings do establish that the VTA had no indication or warning that this event would occur. I'm sure the obvious question you have is, but people said he would go postal. We cannot act on what someone thinks somebody might do. There have been several cases here at VTA where direct threats were made and appropriate action was taken. But the fact that somebody thinks that somebody may do something is insufficient to get a restraining order or to take any further actions. Another question you probably have is, there were multiple examples of workplace misconduct by the perpetrator. Most of them were widely reported by many of you. None of the 5 incidents, individually or all taken together, were sufficient to terminate the perpetrator or warrant serious discipline in any of those cases. I will say that different actions were taken after each of those events. VTA is focused on the areas we feel can do the most good. That is providing mental health resources. These confidential resources are available to all of our employees and their families. We've established a resiliency center with the assistance of Santa Clara County, and we're focusing through our general manager's office on culture and climate change here at VTA. The findings don't go into it, but after this event, we had great support from the county and the office of the district attorney. We're especially thankful for the professional response of law enforcement. Unlike what we've seen in many recent mass shootings, our Sheriff's Department and the San Jose Police Department acted swiftly, professionally, and courageously to prevent even greater loss of life here at VTA. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions from anyone?
Yes, can we talk a little bit more into specifics of your investigation when it comes to those incidents that there was something that was mentioned here that VTA did receive complaints from employees,
Right.
And that then was found suspicious. Can we talk a little bit about that, please?
Hopefully I covered some of that by saying that there were those instances, and people who reported that this individual was unpleasant, unfriendly, may have even felt threatened by them, were talking about their feelings. And he did not issue any threats. He did not say, I'm going to do something to somebody, either in writing or verbally. And because of that, it's very difficult to do something.
And are there any new measures in place to either identify or investigate maybe future employees who exhibit that type of behavior moving forward?
We are trying to do our best by bringing in more mental health resources to assist our employees where they think that there's, they're having problems at home or at work, that they've got somebody to talk to on a confidential basis, all free of charge, for them, for their families, and we're hoping that that will make a difference.
And what do you say to the families of the victims who are sitting at home, obviously a approaching a tough holiday season
Yeah.
without their loved ones, learning now that the investigations, the findings.
Yeah. It's always a tough time to do this, and I think waiting doesn't make it any better. Our board was very concerned about the area of transparency and wanting to get the information out as quickly as possible. The report itself took a long time, and it took a long time because it was difficult to interview witnesses. Many of the witnesses they needed to interview were very traumatized by the event. In fact, some of them so traumatized they wouldn't speak to the investigator. So it did take a long time, and we did want to get this information out as soon as we had it.
The incident where someone complained that he could go postal, why after kind of such a kind of heated argument where he verbally abused someone, did he not have kind of any severe discipline or termination? I'm not an employment law expert, but we have spoken not only to our own in-house attorneys, but to the outside attorneys, and they have all unanimously agreed there was nothing in those actions that were reported, and the ones that she found in the files going through it that would have warranted serious discipline. Certainly far from termination. And if an employee kind of went through that same circumstance, berates a colleague so intensely that people think he might, feel like he could end up harming people, what do you do in that situation now?
Well, similar to what was done in that situation, people did talk to him about it afterwards and did counsel him afterward.
Okay, so just counseling, no discipline.
In that particular case, there was counseling.
There was also one allegation that we received from a victim's family member that said, and this was not confirmed, but a manager had specifically overheard Samuel Cassidy threatening to shoot people. We're wondering if the investigator specifically spoke with this manager and investigated that allegation.
I assure you she spoke to that supervisor.
With VTA being such a large corporation, a lot of employees, as employees come and go, you're always getting new hires. Are you doing anything as far as, changing the way you do background checks or anything along those lines?
We do criminal background checks on all of our employees, and they are monitored as they go through the training period.
What does this mean for any lawsuits?
I'm sorry.
What does this mean for any lawsuits? How do you defend this as being an independent investigation? What were the standards that were set forth?
The standard that was set forth was the civil standard of a preponderance of evidence. And, again, the board felt very strongly about the issue of transparency, even though we are going through lawsuits. And they could have easily said, no comment, no nothing. But they wanted the public to be aware of what was going on as soon as they possibly could.
Everything was open to this investigation, paperwork, conversation?
Yes, this investigator had access to all of VTA's records, any documents that we could find that were associated with it, and she also had access to any of the employees. We did not force anyone to speak to her because, as I mentioned, some of them were just not able to talk about it, and some still aren't.
Moving forward, for people that are currently working at the VTA, what do we tell them when it comes to when will it be enough? If someone gets 1, 2, 3, 4 complaints, when can that person get fired or suspended? How is that going to be working moving forward?
I think that's a very good question. And the challenge that you have is the difference between somebody making threats or doing something threatening, and I think he's going to do something threatening. I assure you that the counseling is a lot more strict these days.
Can you go into detail about the counseling?
I'm sorry?
Can you go into detail about the counseling services?
We have both the the mental health professionals available, as well as the supervisory staff. We have a new head of our human resources who's brought a lot of fresh ideas into the organization, and we also have a new head of system security.
I understand this investigation says you had no awareness of a specific threat.
But looking back, do you think the VTA should have done anything differently, or do you think this kind of clears the VTA and that you acted properly in all the scenarios there?
You know, I appreciate the question, and having lived through this, you know, you always kind of think back yourself what could have been done differently. But, you know, that's hindsight, and hindsight is 20/20.
Where do we go from here?
I'm sorry?
Where are we gonna go from here forward?
Good question. Where we're going forward from here is we are taking a very close look at all of our systems and security. There's going to be a robust review of everything that we have in place. Many changes have been made so far. I think those kinds of changes are helpful in the main. We are also undergoing a study of culture and climate here at VTA to make sure that things don't fester, that things are identified, and that action can be taken.
Obviously, the union also played a part in defending Samuel Cassidy. Do you think that there needs to be kind of any accountability from the union in their role for keeping him in the workplace, the ATU?
He was a VTA employee who happened to be a member of one of our unions, and we treat all of our union members the same.
If there are no other questions, anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to ask a question?
Has everybody who's going to return to the job? Are people still, how are you dealing with going forward with the employees?
We're working very carefully with those people who have not yet returned. Their jobs are still here, and when they're ready, they will be welcomed back.
Have you spoken with the family members of the victims ahead of this press conference?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it.